That night, a billionaire lost everything. Not to a competitor, not to the market, but to the one woman he thought was nothing. He replaced his wife with a model, paraded her in front of the world, and believed the story was over. But what he didn't know was that his invisible wife had already bought his future. And tonight, she came to collect. Before we go on with this interesting story, show your support and love to our channel to encourage more interesting stories by liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. We love you. Now back to our story. Before the money, before the fame, before the arrogance, there was struggle. Jinwoo wasn't always a billionaire. Years ago, he was just a young man with big dreams and empty pockets. His startup was failing. Investors ignored him. Friends distanced themselves. And during that time, there was only one person who stayed: Mirabelle. They met in a quiet cafe in Seoul. She was new to the country, working remotely, living simply. She wasn't impressed by status because Jinwoo had none. What she saw was potential. What he saw was peace. They talked for hours that day, and then the next day, and the next. When his business nearly collapsed, Mirabelle sold her jewelry to support him. When he doubted himself, she reminded him who he was becoming. She didn't build his company, she built him. And when things finally turned around, he promised her something. "I'll never forget you." But success has a way of rewriting promises. Jinwoo's company exploded. New investors, global attention, wealth beyond imagination. And slowly his world changed. Meetings replaced conversations. Status replaced sincerity. Image replaced truth. Mirabelle remained the same. Calm, grounded, supportive. But in Jinwoo's new world, that wasn't enough. He started noticing how people looked at her. Not because she wasn't beautiful, she was, but because she didn't fit the polished image he wanted to sell. First, it was subtle. "Maybe don't come to this event. It's very formal." Then, "Investors might not understand our dynamic." Eventually, he stopped asking altogether. Mirabelle didn't argue, but she noticed. Every silence, every absence, every introduction where she disappeared. Love wasn't loud anymore. It was fading. The morning he told her about the gala, something shifted permanently. "There's a gala this weekend. Important investors will be there." Mirabelle looked up, hopeful. "I'll prepare." "You won't be coming." Silence. "I'm taking someone else." He didn't even look guilty. Mirabelle looked at him for a long moment. Not angry, not emotional, just done. "Okay," she said quietly. And that response? It unsettled him more than anger ever could. Because for the first time, she didn't try to hold on. Days later, the internet exploded with photos. Jinwoo walking the red carpet with a stunning Korean model named Sora. Tall, elegant, perfectly styled. Everything Mirabelle wasn't. In his eyes, headlines praised them. Power couple. Perfect match. Mirabelle saw it all. And she didn't cry. That was the night something inside her changed. What Jinwoo didn't know was that Mirabelle had stopped depending on him a long time ago. While he was building his empire publicly, she was building hers silently. Late nights, quiet meetings, anonymous investments. She studied markets. She partnered with international investors. She built connections Jinwoo could never access. And most importantly, she never used his name. Because Mirabelle wasn't trying to be his wife. She was becoming something far more dangerous. Independent. The night before the gala, Mirabelle packed a small bag. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just intentionally. She walked through the house one last time. Every memory still lived there. But she didn't belong to those memories anymore. She left her wedding ring on the table and walked out, not as someone abandoned, but as someone who had already moved on. Jinwoo received a message the next morning. A private investor, unknown identity, was interested in acquiring a major stake in his company. The condition? They would attend the gala. Jinwoo was thrilled. "This is it," he told Sora. "This deal will double everything." He had no idea that the investor was already watching him closely. The gala was more than an event. It was a stage. And Jinwoo walked in like the star. Sora beside him, cameras flashing. He was at his peak. Nil. The doors opened again. And everything stopped. A woman stepped in. First, it was just a subtle shift. Pause in conversation. A turning of heads. Then silence. Because the woman standing at the entrance didn't just arrive. She commanded the moment. Mirabelle. But not the Mirabelle anyone remembered. Outside, a long black luxury car had pulled up quietly. No loud announcement, no dramatic crowd. The kind of arrival reserved for people who didn't need attention. Because attention naturally followed them. A uniformed driver stepped forward and opened the door with precision. And then, she stepped out. Slowly. Gracefully. Deliberately. Her heels touched the ground like she owned it. The gown she wore wasn't just expensive. It was a statement. A custom-made, multi-million-dollar masterpiece. Deep gold. Almost liquid in the way it reflected the light. Hand-embroidered with fine detailing that shimmered like stars woven into fabric. The dress hugged her frame perfectly, elegant, powerful, regal, flowing behind her like a quiet declaration of dominance. Each step caused the fabric to move like royalty in motion. Around her neck, a minimalist diamond piece. Not loud but unmistakably rare. Her earrings caught the chandelier light with every slight turn of her head. Her hair styled with precision. Her posture unshaken. Her presence unmatched. She didn't rush. She didn't look around for approval. She walked forward as if the entire night had been waiting for her. And in that moment, the room forgot everyone else. Conversations stopped. Cameras shifted. Even the music felt like it had faded into the background. Jinwoo's smile disappeared. Sora's confidence cracked. Because standing there was not the woman he ignored. This was a woman reborn. A woman who had nothing to prove and everything to reveal. Mirabelle walked past him. Without hesitation. Without acknowledgement. Without permission. And in that single moment, she didn't just enter the gala. She owned it. She didn't even look at him. Minutes later, the host took the stage. We are honored to welcome a special guest. The investor behind tonight's biggest acquisition. Spotlight. On Mirabelle. The entire room gasped. Jinwoo's face drained of color. This is impossible. Mirabelle stepped forward. Every step measured. Controlled. She didn't rush. Because power doesn't hurry. When she spoke, the room listened. I believe in quiet growth, she said. And in building things that don't need validation to exist. She looked directly at Jinwoo. And tonight, I'm here to finalize my purchase. Pause. Of GeneTech. Jinwoo rushed forward. You can't do this. This is my company. Mirabelle tilted her head slightly. No, she said softly. You lost it the moment you forgot who stood with you before it mattered. Documents were presented. Signatures confirmed. Ownership transferred. Just like that, Jinwoo was no longer the man in control. I didn't come here for revenge, she said. I came for closure. She turned to Sora. You didn't steal anything from me. He gave himself away. Then back to Jinwoo. You were never ashamed of me. Pause. You were afraid I would outgrow you. Silence. And you were right. Weeks later, news broke globally. Mirabelle, now CEO, restructured the company. New leadership. New vision. New values. And her first public speech? Success without respect is failure in disguise. Jinwoo disappeared from the spotlight. Sora moved on. But Mirabelle? She became a symbol. Not of revenge, but of transformation. The world thought the story had ended. But the truth? That was just the beginning. Because men like Jinwoo don't accept defeat. They fight it. And sometimes, they destroy themselves trying. The morning after the gala, Jinwoo didn't sleep. He sat alone in his penthouse. But now, it felt empty. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Investors. Board members. Media. What happened? He ignored them all. This isn't over, he muttered. She got lucky. Jinwoo hired lawyers. Expensive. Aggressive. He filed to challenge the acquisition. Technicalities. Loopholes. For a moment, it looked promising. Until Mirabelle responded. Her legal team dismantled everything. Clean. Precise. Final. This wasn't luck. It was strategy. If he couldn't win legally, he would win socially. He called his powerful connections. Don't work with her. She won't last. But Mirabelle didn't argue. She performed. Quarterly results came out. Record-breaking. New partnerships. Expansion no one expected. The same people he called started calling her instead. Jinwoo tried to rebuild. New ideas. New pitches. But something had changed. Before people saw a winner. Now, they saw risk. Doors began to close. Weeks later, he saw her again. In a quiet corporate hallway. Mirabelle. She stopped. Turned. Calm. Yes. I want to talk. They sat across from each other. You planned all this? He asked. I prepared, she said. You took everything from me. No, she replied softly. I built something you ignored. You could have talked to me. I tried. You stopped listening. Silence. Still, he wasn't done. He approached a rival company. Proposed a move against her. If we act now, we can break her. The deal almost happened. Until one question stopped it. If she outplayed you once, what makes you think she won't do it again? Everything collapsed. Not because of her. Because of doubt. That night, Jinwoo stopped fighting. He sat alone. No excuses. No ego. Just truth. He remembered everything. Her sacrifices. Her silence. Her strength. And his choices. One by one, they broke him. Days later, he asked to see her again. This time, not as a businessman, but as a man. They met in a quiet place. No cameras. I was wrong, he said. I didn't just disrespect you. I underestimated you and overestimated myself. I thought success made me better. But it only revealed who I became. Mirabelle looked at him. Calm. Steady. Growth doesn't come from success, she said. It comes from truth. Is there anything left between us? He asked. She took a breath. What we had was real, she said. But who we became? She shook her head. Is different. I didn't do this to hurt you, she continued. I did it to stop shrinking for someone who stopped seeing me. And you losing everything. That was the consequence of your choices. Months later, Jinwoo started again. Quietly. No spotlight. Just work. Real work. He began rebuilding. Not his empire. Himself. Mirabelle continued to rise. But differently. She mentored others. Supported overlooked talent. Built opportunities for people who felt invisible. Because she never forgot what it felt like to be unseen. Some people lose everything and blame the world. Others lose everything and find themselves. Jinwoo lost power, but gained perspective. Mirabelle lost a husband, but found her worth. And in the end, the woman he tried to hide became the name the world couldn't ignore. Never disrespect silent strength, because when it speaks, it doesn't ask, takes. And if you think the story ends there, then you missed the most important part. Because what happened between Jinwoo and Mirabelle was never just about money. It was about value. And value is something many people don't understand until they lose it. What really happened here wasn't just a business takeover. It was a slow, painful lesson about how people treat what they think they own. Jinwoo didn't lose his company in one night. He lost it the moment he started measuring worth by appearance instead of substance. He lost it when he chose image over loyalty. He lost it when he stopped listening to the one person who never lied to him. And most of all, he lost it when he became comfortable disrespecting someone who once built him. There's a dangerous mindset that success can create. It makes you believe that the people who stood with you at the bottom will always stay at the bottom, that they need you more than you need them, that they will never outgrow you. But life doesn't work like that. People grow. Silently. Powerfully. And sometimes, while you're busy looking down on them, they're building something that will one day place them above you. Mirabelle didn't become powerful overnight. She didn't wake up rich. She didn't suddenly change. She simply stopped waiting to be seen and started building something that didn't require permission. That's one of the biggest lessons in this story. Stop waiting for validation. Stop waiting for people to recognize your worth. Because the moment your value depends on someone else's recognition, You've already given away your power. Another lesson: silence is not weakness. Too many people mistake quiet people for powerless people. But silence can mean observation, can mean patience, can mean strategy. Mirabelle didn't argue. She didn't fight loudly. She didn't beg to be included. She watched. She learned. She prepared. And when the moment came, she didn't need to shout. Her results spoke for her. There's also a hard truth about relationships here. Love is not what destroys most relationships. Disrespect is. Jinwoo didn't fall out of love with Mirabelle overnight. He slowly replaced respect with pride. And once respect is gone, love struggles to survive. Because real love is not just about feelings. It's about how you treat someone when you no longer need them. Another lesson: never build your identity on temporary things. Money can go. Status can fade. Public admiration can disappear overnight. Jinwoo built his identity on being powerful. So when power left, he didn't know who he was anymore. But Mirabelle? She built herself from the inside. So when everything changed, she remained stable. That's the difference between people who rise and fall, and people who rise and remain. And here's something deeper. Sometimes the biggest loss in your life is actually your greatest correction. Jinwoo losing everything forced him to see himself clearly. Not as a billionaire, not as a success story, but as a man who made choices. Wrong choices. And that kind of clarity is painful, but necessary. But this story is not just about loss. It's also about restoration. Not of a relationship, but of self-worth. Months turned into a year. Mirabelle's life continued to evolve. Not loudly, not for attention, but intentionally. She traveled more, expanded her influence globally, worked with organizations that supported women, especially those who felt unseen in powerful spaces. But something else happened, something she didn't expect. She found peace, the kind of peace that doesn't come from success, but from alignment, from knowing who you are, and no longer shrinking to fit into someone else's world. And then, she met someone, not at a gala, not through business, but in a quiet setting, a leadership conference focused on global development. His name was Daniel. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was respected, yes. Successful, yes. But grounded. Very grounded. Their first conversation was simple. No tension. No performance. Just two people talking. And for the first time in a long time, Mirabelle wasn't being observed. She was being understood. Daniel didn't see her as the powerful CEO. He didn't see her as the woman who took over a company. He saw her as a person. And more importantly, he listened. Something so simple, yet so rare. They didn't rush. They didn't force anything. They built slowly. On respect. On honesty. On clarity. Daniel admired her strength. But he never felt threatened by it. He celebrated it. Supported it. Stood beside it. Not above it. Not ahead of it. Beside it. And that changed everything. Because Mirabelle wasn't looking for someone to complete her. She was already whole. She was simply open to someone who could walk with her, without trying to control her. Over time, what they built became real. Not perfect, but healthy. And one day, in a quiet moment, far away from cameras and expectations, Mirabelle realized something. She wasn't just successful. She was happy. Not because of revenge. Not because she proved a point. But because she chose herself. And then allowed the right person to meet her at that level. As for Jinwoo, he heard about it. Not through headlines, but through whispers. And surprisingly, he didn't feel anger. He felt something else. Acceptance. Because by then, he had finally learned the lesson he resisted for so long. You don't lose people because they become too much. You lose them because you failed to see enough. And that's how this story ends. Not with revenge, not with regret, but with understanding. So if you take anything from this story, let it be this. Value people when they are with you, not when they've outgrown you. Respect people who stand with you in your lowest moments, because those are the same people who will stand tall when you rise. And if you ever find yourself becoming successful, be careful, because success doesn't change who you are. It reveals it. And finally, Never underestimate the person you're trying to hide. 'Cause one day, they might become the reason the world sees clearly. That was Mirabelle's story. Not of revenge, but of awakening. Not of loss, but of becoming. And in the end, she didn't just win. She became someone no one could ever ignore again.